So my name is Guillaume Ferroni. I will talk about the French craft spirits market. So I'm a founder of Maison Ferroni. Maison Ferroni is a craft distillery, not only distillery, also an independent bottler, specialized mainly in rum. So I'm mainly aging rum. I'm also the founder of Cabo Verde Spirits, which is a company working with the Cabo Verde rum called Grog. And I'm specialized mainly in rum aging and aniseed spirits, so pastis, absinthe, and I was a bartender from the 2000 to 11, and I love to work with other companies. So I work as a bartender for the drink strategy and as a distiller for other companies for setting new distillery and creating new products. So for the French craft spirit markets, what is interesting is that in France we have 3 layers of craft distilleries. The first layer is the classical one, the oldest one. It's present in France in the 19th century and the early 20th century. They are made of groups of distilleries, groups of categories. The first category is eau de vie distillery, so the one distillery that distill fruits. In France, it was a specialty because when you were owning fruit trees, you had in the past the right to distill alcohol without paying taxes. So there were many, many distilleries. It was called bouilleur de cru, and you were allowed to either distill the fruits or to bring into a distillery and have in back your alcohol without taxes. The remaining region of this specialty is Alsace, so very close to Germany, the German-speaking part of France. Then another group is cognac distillery. So cognac is not a craft spirit, but how does it work? Cognac, it is mainly big companies, but big companies, they are mainly merchants. And NC, Remy Martin, they are merchants, and they work with small distilleries. These small distilleries, they provide cognac to the big ones, but they also have a side production. So they are craft distilleries. They have a side production in cognac with their own brand, but they also do other brands, other products. Same thing with Armagnac and Calvados. Armagnac, they are only craft distilleries. Even some of them are not distillers, they just own the grape, and they have these moving distilleries distilling the products, but they are all crafts, and now they play a new role with the new emerging craft distilleries. Another group is ex-absinthe distillery. France was in the past the first nation for absinthe. It was forbidden in 1915, but the absinthe distilleries, they wanted to survive, so they shifted to other spirits. The region of absinthe distillery was also in the east of France, near Pontarlier and Fougerolles. And the last but not least, the old liquor and local specialty producers, there were local liquor in every part of France. For instance, in the north, they were doing Geneva, like in Holland. But all these small distilleries, they all survived until the 1980. So in the 1980, probably 80% of the distillers were all classical distilleries. And then came a second wave. The second wave, so the recent distilleries, the whiskey makers. So France is not a country of whiskey, but it's a country of whiskey drinkers. It's the first nation for consumption of single malt. It's the first market for whiskey, and so this attracted new distilleries. So in the 1980s, some companies started to create whiskey distilleries. These whiskey distilleries are very specialized, they are pure player. Usually they only distill whiskey, and it's growing at a very fast pace. So in the beginning, there were very few of them. They were beginners, so with no reputation, or a very few reputation. And this is changing. This is changing because it begins to have a market recognition. There is now 2 IGP for French whiskey. So there is the one from Brittany, the Celtic side of France, and one from Alsace, where they are doing, it's the beer region. And at the present time, there is also a project for Whiskey de France recognition by the European community. And the third wave, so the current wave, The third wave is the present wave. So the present wave, I call them the first group, the diversified creative distilleries. So that's your home distillery. They set up in every town, and they do every product. They do gin, they do liquors, they do whiskeys, they do pasties. And among this, so this is booming. It's really a craze. It started around the 2000 year, and from a few years now, it's exploding. There is one distillery every month. In this part of in this group, we can talk about the Niol natural movement. Niol, it's the slang word, it's like booze. And it's a group of distillery very activists. They only work organic products. They don't want natural alcohol. And they usually circumvent or fight the European regulation. For instance, many of them do pasties. Pasties, you have to do natural alcohol basis, but they don't want to do this, so they make another product called pastiche, a wrong pastiche. Same with gin. So they try only to use natural spirit that they ferment themselves. And so it's I think it's probably 50% of the diversified creative distilleries. And then a large group, which is probably what is very special for the French craft spirit market, is rum producers. And in fact, there are three small groups of rum producers. Rum is really booming in France, as for consumption or for craft distilleries. The first thing is rum independent bottler. It started probably 20 years ago. There are many. Every week there's a new one. Some now are becoming large companies like Plantation. Everybody knows Plantation, but it is a French independent bottler. They're targeting expert drinkers, and they have usually high retail prices. The opposite is rhum arrangé. Rhum arrangé, it's a French specialty. It was a specialty from the French islands. Rhum arrangé is just rum with fruit in the bottle and sugar, and it was a domestic product. But some producers start to sell and make rhum arrangé, and now it's booming. It's booming, and it's probably mainly half of the French rum market. Rhum arrangé, some are also beginning big companies. And last but not least, rum craft distilleries. So there are distilleries. France was already a country of rum, but not craft rum. You know, rum agricole, it's artisanal, but it's big companies working with colons. And usually the trend was they were closing or merging. But a few years ago, some were creating craft distilleries, first in the Caribbean, then in the mainland, so in continental France, working with molasses, and very recently also with sugarcane in the south of France. So we now grow sugarcane in the south of France. We grow sugarcane in Corsica, and there are already two production of, let's say, agricole rum made in continental France, and also a very strange thing. Southeast Asia. So Southeast Asia is not France, but there are many French entrepreneurs that create agricole style rum in Southeast Asia. I worked for a company in Cambodia. So in Cambodia there are three. In Thailand there are three. There are one in Laos. There are two in Vietnam. So it's really a very strange thing. French entrepreneurs that create rum in Southeast Asia, not only for the local market, but mainly for also selling in France. So that was the supply and demand. So craft distillery, they have three channels of distribution. The first one, on trade, frankly speaking, is not for craft distilleries. On trade is very difficult for craft distilleries. You compete with major brands, with cheap products, or that have many money to be in the bars, and you can do a lot of efforts, but very few sales. The real markets for craft distillers are either cavistes are wine shops, or what we call GD, Grand Distribution, is supermarkets. Cavist, it's also a very special retail shop in France. There are around 6,000 of them around France, so it's quite a big distribution channel. They are usually independent, and they are usually owned by passionate owners, so it's very good for craft distilleries. Some are in networks, but also in networks like franchise, they're also owned by independent owners, so they love local products. On the other hand, the opposite, GD, so Grand Distribution or supermarkets, it's a French specialty, so they are all over France. Carrefour, Casino, everybody know these big supermarkets. They all have a joint purchasing department, and it's very difficult to enter in supermarkets in France. They negotiate by law, it's the French law, once a year, so if you don't be there at that time, you can enter in the market, and they're very harsh negotiators with a lot of penalties. If you deliver not on the right time, you have a penalty. If you are out of stock, you have a penalty. So for small distilleries, it's very difficult, but they have huge volumes. So what market to choose? So obviously, cavists, so wine shops, it's a paradise for craft distilleries. It's a paradise. Independent owner, they love your products. Even the franchise wine, they can buy directly the products. They have a 20% free range, so they can buy directly to you. They target educated consumers and wealthy consumers, so the one that buy the craft spirits. And they all love craft distilleries. So you open the door, you make a friend, you sell your bottle. But they just hate supermarkets, Grand Distribution. So they hate them. On the other way, you go to Grand Distribution, so to supermarkets. Buyers are very difficult to reach because there is just one buyer for the whole chain, so you have to go in the suburb of Paris, it is usually. They are very well organized. You have to be very well organized because you have penalty at every time you lose something in the contracts. And buyers, they absolutely don't care about the products. They come from business schools. They just try to have the lowest price. It's very hard, but it's very rewarding because it's high volumes. But if you put a food there, you're banned from the other side. So you have to decide. If you work with cavists and you put just one bottle in supermarkets, the cavist will remove all your products. They hate that you work with the both sides. So it could be easy, I would say, to choose the cavist if you're a craft distillery. Choose the cavist way to enter. Because it is paradise, but in fact it was paradise. It was paradise. It's becoming more and more difficult because craft distilleries are popping everywhere. When I started, I was a local distillery for the south of France. I was local in Marseille. I am in Marseille. I was local in Nice, in Toulon, in Montpellier, in Toulouse. But now I'm no more local in Toulouse because there are 4 distilleries. There was distilleries in Aix, there were distilleries in Toulon. So the local market is going narrower and narrower. Also, the number of craft distilleries is exploding. The number of cavists stays the same. So there is no more room on the shelves. It's very, very competitive. And last thing, the big brands, usually they were not working with cavists. They were working with GD, Grand Distribution. But now they started to realize that it's also a big market because 6,000 retailers is a market, so they are always arranged for cavists. So if you're a craft distiller, in the past it was very easy, now it's very difficult because you may sell locally, but it's very, very local. On the other hand, Grand Distribution, so supermarkets, they are under pressure. They're losing market because cavists are taking the market, also online selling are taking the market, so they changed the model. Now they want local products, so they have the right to buy local products, so they want you as a craft distiller. But you have to choose, because if you go to Grand Distribution, you're banned from the other side. And they give power to the store manager, so now they can buy directly craft products from local people. But it's very difficult. You have really to choose. And there is a third way. So now it's a dilemma. If you start a distillery in France, you have to pay attention. Will you work with cavists and stay very local, or will we work with Grand Distribution, but very difficult to start? The third way, which is starting, but you have to start to think this when you create your distillery, is to work directly. France is a country of tourism, and more tourists are coming to distilleries. So if you create a distillery with a touristic attraction, you can sell a lot, up to 50% of turnover of some distilleries, and it's at full margin, so it's a very, very good business. So this is the third way. Thank you very much.